Good morning, everyone. Am I
Good
audible?
morning, ma'am.
Yes,
Good
yes.
morning, ma'am.
Okay, so I'm going to introduce the speaker of today's session. So, our guest speaker is Mrs. Angeline Kani. She's an RNM MSc Nursing Pediatrics. Madam is working as a staff nurse in Thoracic Medicine, Government Hospital, Tambram, Sanatorium, Chennai. Her education qualification, so she has completed her MSc Nursing in the year 2010 to 2012 from CSI Jayaraj Annapakyam College of Nursing, Madurai. And Madam had completed her BSc Nursing program from our college, 2002 batch. Madam is our distinguished alumni. We are very fortunate to have you today, ma'am. And her additional qualification, she had completed training on cardiopulmonary resuscitation by CMC Vellore in February 2008. And Madam had undergone medical transcription both in US and UK. Her professional experience, she started her career as staff nurse in the year August 2007 to 2008. She has worked as surgery in Christian Medical College and Hospital Vellore for a 1 year period of 1 year. Then clinical instructor. She again joined as a clinical instructor in the year May 2009 to May 2010, and there in MIMS College of Nursing, Calicut. And again, she has joined as lecturer in the year 2012 to 2015, and she worked in Mother College of Nursing, Kundratur, Chennai for 3 years. Then again, Madam was selected in Medical Recruitment Board, that is MRB, as a staff nurse in the year 2015. Until 2018, she was working at Salavakam, Kanchipuram. And Madam is still working in thoracic medicine as a staff nurse, Government Hospital, Tambaram, Sanatorium, Chennai. And Madam has done various paper presentation. Requested to mute your call. Students, you're requested to mute your call. So paper presentation, Madam had presented a paper in National Nursing Conference on Rehabilitation Nursing, a neotric approach conducted by Mother College of Nursing, Chennai in the year 2013. And she organized workshop and conferences in various levels. And Madam had participated in various national and international conferences. So I hand over the session to Madam Angeline Kani. So, Madam, we are very fortunate to have you today with us. So, the session is yours, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer,
Yes,
for your brief explanation about my career. Shall we start?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, ma'am, you can start.
Respected principal, ma'am, my mentors, and all other faculties of PSG Con. It's a great pleasure to thank you all for providing me an opportunity to share my experience regarding the infection control practices in the time of this pandemic. It's also my immense pleasure to thank all my mentors who laid a strong foundation from the year 2002 to 2006 during my training period in PSG College of Nursing. I also thank the PSG institution for providing all the essential needs which are required for a student during her student period. Since the foundation was very strong during my training period, now I am able to serve a lot poor people, especially the needy people in our state. Thank you. Shall we proceed to the session?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am?
Slides, please.
Yes, ma'am. Is it visible to you, ma'am?
No.
Yeah, just a second, ma'am.
Okay.
Is it visible, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning, students. Today, I'm going to present a topic on infection control. Next slide. Next. As we all know, what is this? Wait. Okay. As we all know, the pioneer of our nursing profession is Florence Nightingale. As she told the famous quote, the first requirement in a hospital is that it should do the sick and no harm. That is, when we receive a patient in a hospital, a patient will get admitted in a hospital due to certain illness. Is it right? But beyond that, what after coming inside the hospital, sometimes the patients are more prone to get nosocomial infection. So to prevent that nosocomial infection, as we nurses, we are supposed to follow many of the practices. So what are the practices? How we can control this infection? Okay, that's the topic I'm going to discuss today. Healthcare associated infection mainly causes economic loss, mostly to the patients, and prolonged hospital stay. For example, the patient may come to hospital for a mild illness like fever. But after that, because of our poor handling of the patient may get some other additional infection where the patient has to stay in the hospital for a long time. And also, this will bring out a bad patient outcome. The patient recovery will not be a good one. Okay, this hospital care associated infection is also called as a nosocomial infection. In most healthcare facilities, the average incidence of hospital care associated infection is around almost 5 to 10%. Next slide. The definition for infection control is the measures which are practiced by the healthcare personnel mainly to prevent spread, transmission, and acquisition of infection between the clients. That is, from the client number 1 to client number 2, or from the healthcare provider, from the nurse to the patient, or from the patient to the healthcare provider. So these are the 3 areas where we are more prone to, where we can break the infection chain. The main objectives of this session is understand how the nurses can prevent the infection, the healthcare facilities, what are the specific measures we are supposed to follow while we are taking care of the patients, and understand that a risk assessment must be performed to determine PPE usage, practice the use and disposal of the PPE, whatever used by the staff, practice proper hand washing, and understand how to manage waste and how we are supposed to discard the waste which are used in the healthcare settings. Next slide. What are the types of precautions which we have to follow during the practice? There are mainly 2 types of precautions. They are standard precaution and the transmission-based precautions. Standard precautions, we have mainly 4 components. They are the basic hand washing. The second is the personal protective equipments. Third is the decontamination, and fourth is the waste disposal, which is also called as biomedical waste management. Under transmission-based precautions, we have mainly 3: contact, droplet borne, and airborne precautions. Next slide, please. Next is why we have to follow this infection control. First, we should know what is an infection. Infection is just something which enters inside our body due to certain conditions. Okay, there is an infection cycle. Hope you have learned about the chain of infection. First is the agent, that is many bacteria, virus, protozoal, fungal, or whatever it might be, agent which enters into the body. Okay, for example, when we are giving patient care, if you are not at all practicing proper hand washing, what will happen? The patient will be having some sort of infection which should be transmitted to other healthcare worker. Okay, and second is the where the reservoir, where the germs live, the germs which comes inside our body, where does it live? It may live in the mainly the people and the pet animals what we are having, especially in our home, and even the food what we are eating, food, water, soil, whichever which is contaminated, we have more prone to is serving as a reservoir of infection. And next is the portal of exit. How does it comes out? For example, the infection first enters in my body, and it survives as a reservoir in my body, and after a long time, when I talk, for example, if I have some respiratory infections, for example, you can take as tuberculosis. When I sneeze or when I cough in front of other patients, via my mouth, the saliva, this infection gets out. Okay, that is portal of exit. And next is the portal of mode of transmission. How does it transmit to some other person. Like myself and my friend will be sitting very close and we are talking together. If I am a sputum positive PTB patient, what will happen? This Mycobacterium tuberculosis, which is present in the saliva, will enter inside my friend's body. That is mainly due droplet infection. Okay, contact droplets, etc. And portal of entry by if my friend is not wearing proper PPE, especially the mask. Okay, especially the mask, there was a droplet infection from me enters inside my friend's body. And next is a susceptible host. Susceptible host means, for example, there are many people who are immunodeficient, especially the babies whose immune system is not properly developed. Okay, babies, children, elderly, and mainly the geriatric people is also very weakened people who are more prone to get infection, and also unimmunized people. We have, as you all know, we have many immunization in the national immunization schedule. Okay, so when the people who are more not at all immunized are more prone to get the infection. Okay, this is about the infection cycle. Once again, I repeat, first is the germs, mainly the microorganisms like bacteria, virus, etc., which are present in the environment, which enters inside a human body and serves as a reservoir for a short period of time. And after that, it will exit by other, especially through the body secretions, and then it will enter inside some other's body, and also via the mainly to droplet contact mode of transmission. And next is it will enter inside the other person's body. And if the patient is a very immunodeficient people, very unimmunized people, the people will become sick. This is the infection cycle. Okay, next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, this is the description for that. Okay, infection agent is a pathogen that causes disease, and reservoir is a place where the previous slide, please. Reservoir is a place where the pathogen gets multiplied. Next slide. And portal of exit is the way where the infectious agent leaves the reservoir, especially through the open wounds, cuts, and everything. Okay. The next is, see, we nurses, we are highly responsible for preventing infection. How we can prevent the infection? We have to break the chain of infection. We can take steps to break the chain of infection in each steps. Okay, first is how we have to break the chain. For example, first is the infectious agent. Once you are getting some infection, we are supposed to diagnose it properly, and we have to take the proper treatment for this. Like if it is a viral infection, you can take some, you can visit the hospital and take them antibiotics which are provided by the healthcare facility. Okay, and also the second is how we can prevent the infection chain from the reservoir by cleaning the surfaces, especially the people who are working in the healthcare settings, the table, chairs, and whatever it might be. Okay, we have to clean. We have to make the housekeeping department to clean and disinfect the utensils which are used in the healthcare settings properly with the proper antibiotics, proper disinfectants. Okay, and then this we have to adhere to the infection prevention protocol whichever is practiced in the hospital settings. Okay, and also the pest control, like especially to prevent the mosquito bites and also the small mites which are present especially in the animals. When we are having some pet animals at home, we are supposed to insist on pest control so that the infection from the animals will not be transmitted to the human. And from the next, how you can prevent this from the portal of exit to mode of transmission, like open wounds, how we can proper hand washing. Whenever you are going and touching a patient, please come to the sink and wash your hands. If hand washing is not available, at least you can sanitize your hands for a few seconds. Okay, and hand washing and wearing the proper PPE. Whenever we are working in a healthcare settings now, we are supposed to adhere to at least to the mask and gloves which are provided in the healthcare setting, so that the infected droplets will not spread to the other people. Okay, and then control of aerosols and the splashes of fluids and respiratory acute. That is, whenever you have like in media, in however you are seeing, whenever you have cough, you are supposed to cough in a handkerchief and you're supposed to discard it immediately. In case if handkerchiefs are not available, what you can do is you can sneeze on your own shoulder, and if it is contaminated, kindly go and wash. Okay, never ever sneeze or cough in front of a patient. Either you're healthy or unhealthy, never ever cough in front of anybody. Okay, because you might be a healthy carrier and the opponent who is sitting opposite to you might not be a healthy carrier. So we nurses are responsible for even protecting the society. Okay, so in this, we should be very, very cautious. Like in the mode of transmission, we have to adhere to the strict infection control protocol, hand hygiene, personal protective equipments, and respiratory equipment, and waste disposal. Waste disposal, whenever you are disposing the, especially the contaminated objects like mask and gloves, kindly discard in the proper biomedical bins provided in your hospitals, because the waste will also be handled by a healthcare worker. Okay, and whenever you are discarding, kindly don't touch the infected surface of the mask or gloves. Discard it properly with the infected side rolled in. Okay, and next is the how you can break the chain from mode of transmission to the portal of entry. It is also same like hand hygiene, personal protective equipment, food safety, and then cleaning and disinfection of the disinfection, sterilization, and isolation. Okay, and next how you can break the chain from portal of entry means same. You have to follow all the PPE, hand hygiene, and then if you have a cuts, for example, from the mode of transmission, how it end up whenever we are having a broken skin, kindly go and have the TT, tetanus toxoid, immediately. And if you are working in a healthcare facility, kindly cover the wound with some plaster where it should not get exposed to the microorganism. Okay, and change the plasters frequently. And then next is like you have to wear the mask to prevent your entry of droplets into your oral cavity, and then removal of all the catheters and tubes which are present in the patient. For example, like this portal of entry is also infection. For example, in the healthcare settings, especially in the ICU and all, within 72 hours, you are supposed to change all the tubings. Okay, and also not within 72 hours. If you see them, some crystals in the urinary catheters, kindly replace that immediately, because it may also cause a urinary tract infection. So observation is very, very essential. Kindly see all the cannulas which are present in the patient, whether it is clean, sterile. Okay, if you find it that it is contaminated, kindly replace it with an alternative so that you can at least limit the infection. Okay, next is how you can prevent the infection. No. Previous slide, please. Next, how we can prevent the infection from the susceptible host means like any you have to take see when we are during our student period itself in PhD, we took hepatitis B infection, this vaccination. I remember that. Okay, so nowadays all the hospitals are encouraging the staffs to take hepatitis B and then TT frequently. Now we are taking Covaxin and Covishield, since we are going to get exposed to the particular people. So same like when you are working in an hospital, when they are enforcing you to practice some preventive measures, kindly adhere to that, like immunizing yourself. Then when you have some disease, like when you are taking treatment for some certain disease, kindly go on, follow the proper disease. And then since when you have a disease, you are more prone to get some other disease also. So you should take care of yourself. And also you have to educate the patient regarding the chain of infection. Okay, next slide, please. Next is a common organism which causes the infections. They are the bacteria, virus, fungal, and parasites. Okay, what are the bacterial? Mainly, as you all know, Staphylococcus aureus, Enterococcus, Pseudomonas capsula, etc. Virus is mainly HIV, HBV, HCV, and cytomegalovirus. Fungus, Candida albicans, Aspergillus. Parasites are Giardia, Lamblia. Next slide. Next is the risk factors which are associated with the infections. Mainly, who are the persons who are more prone to get infections? Who are immunodeficient, especially as we have seen in the infection cycle, the kids, children, babies, children, and old age. These are the healthy people who are more prone to get immunity. Other is the immunodeficient patient, means like when you see the HIV infected patients, where the CD4 cells mainly affects the T cells. Okay, and these patients are more prone to get many sorts of infections. Okay, so these people are more prone to get infections. So when we are handling this patient, we are supposed to follow strict PPE. Okay, next is the invasive procedure. Okay, whenever we are doing some invasive procedure, kindly follow the strict asepsis. Okay, when I read this invasive procedure, I remember I have written an imposition for 1,000 times for doing a procedure in an for touching the unsterile environment during my first year BSc Nursing, PSG College of Nursing for fundamentals of nursing. I wrote hereafter I will do perineal care with the strict asepsis. I wrote this for 1,000 times. Okay, so whenever you are doing some procedures, kindly be attentive. Whenever you are doing some procedures, be attentive so that you will be able to, since you have learned everything, you are ready to do that. But during that period of time, due to your fear, you will be doing something mischievous. Okay, so whenever you are doing some invasive procedures, you should be very, very cautious. Kindly don't touch the unsterile environment. Okay, then it is inappropriate antimicrobial usage. Whenever we are cleaning that, we should see that the healthcare workers, that is especially the housekeeping department, whenever they are disinfecting or whenever they are cleaning the floors, mopping the floors, are they using properly diluted liquid for mopping the floors? Okay, and for also cleaning the tables and whatever the equipments which are used in the healthcare settings. Okay, and next is drug resistance. Drug resistance means like many people would for example, when you come to the TB also, when they become a TB defaulter, the patient will get resistant for many drugs. Finally, none of the drugs will react to the particular organism. So these people are also more prone to get infection. Next is a contaminated environment. Okay, whenever the place surrounding which we are working is highly contaminated, we healthcare people are also more prone to get infection. Same like the patients who are getting admitted will also get infected. Okay, so the environment should also be very, very clean. So what you have to do, you have to make sure whether the healthcare or the housekeeping department is cleaning the equipments properly. Next, we can move on to the standard precautions. Okay, what is standard precautions? These are set of infection control practices which are used to prevent transmission of diseases that can be acquired by control with especially body fluids and blood, body fluids, non-intact skin and mucous membrane. Okay, what is the main aim? Main aim of this standard precaution is to minimize the risk of transmission of infectious agent in all situations. Okay, what are the steps involved in this? They are mainly the hand washing, PPE, personal protective equipments, decontamination, and then waste disposal. Okay, next is, first we can move on to the hand hygiene. Okay, hand hygiene, hand washing is the single most effective measures in controlling infection. Okay, they say that almost 80% of the diseases are spread mainly through the contaminated hands, that too especially of the healthcare worker. Okay, so we people, whenever we are practicing some procedures, we are supposed to adhere to strict hand washing. So when, at what time, what are the moments where we are supposed to follow the hand washing procedure? Next slide. First is before touching a patient. Okay, first as soon as you enter inside your ward, you'll keep all your bag on side and then you'll move on to your bedside. Is it right? So before touching a patient, kindly go wash your hands and then go talk to the patient. How are you? How do you feel? Well, did you eat yesterday? Did you sleep yesterday? What are your presenting complaints? Like that, kindly make a good interpersonal relationship with the patient. So by that time, before hand washing, you just touch the patient. Okay. And then second is before clean and doing a procedure. Okay, whatever procedure, might be checking in vitals. Okay, might be checking in temperature, pulse, respiration, or even a BP. Okay, kindly clean your hands. If you cannot go, if your water facility is not available, kindly have your own sanitizer. Okay, kindly sanitize your hands and then do the procedure. Third is after body fluid exposure, especially when you are collecting some blood samples, urine samples, saliva, and then when you are doing some secretions, when you are collecting some urine samples, whatever it might be, blood, body fluids are under high risk of getting infection for the healthcare worker because suddenly it may splash. So kindly wash your hands after collecting whatever samples it might be. Okay. Fourth is after touching a patient. That is after completing all your procedure or whatever it might be, kindly wash your hands. Finally, after touching patient surroundings, like patient's cot, locker, you would have taken some water bottle from the patient's locker. And then after that, because that water bottle might be contaminated. Okay. So after touching patients and patient surrounding also, you're supposed to wash your hands. Next is hand washing technique. Okay. So how many steps are there in hand washing technique? Mainly there are 8 steps. Okay. So first is like first we need a free flow running water. Okay. Free flow running water is very, very essential. And also the knob, the top of the tap should be near this elbow operated, as you would have seen in PSG operation theaters. Okay, that this type of packets will be available in OTs. Okay, so first you have to wet your hands from tip of the finger to the elbow. Okay, fully wet your hands. Okay, and then under running water, and then apply enough amount of either liquid soap or soap water, whichever available in your healthcare settings. Okay, generally take 5 to 10 ml in your hands, and then first step is rub hands palm to palm. Yeah, both palm should be fully filled with the soap lather. Okay, and then is rub back of each hand with palm of the other hand. First is you can keep your left hand and right palm over the left dorsum of the hand. Okay, and second, first is palm to palm, second is right palm over the left dorsum of the back of the hands, and rub for nearly 5 to 7 stripes. Okay, and next and also when you're rubbing this, your this finger should go interlaced. Okay, can you see the fourth image? The fingers are interlaced. Okay, and the fifth is the rub palm to palm with fingers interlocked. Okay, with fingers interlocked. Okay, and sixth is that you have to take care of this rub with the back of the fingers to the opposite palm with fingers interlaced. And also this, especially in the sixth step, we are mainly concentrating on the knuckles and this nail toes or nail buds. Okay, and then this knuckles rub each steps you have to do for 5 to 7 times. Okay, and seventh step, rub each thumb claps in opposite directions, and for first you can do with the right and second is the left. Okay, rub it for 5 to 7 times, and rub, and final thing is the rub with the this fingertips in the palm of the hand for 5 times. Okay, same you have to do for the opposite hand also. And last 9 is just from the tip of the finger start up to the wrist, not up to the elbow. Wrist is more than enough. For a surgical, there are different types of hand washing, medical and surgical hand washing. This is the general hand washing technique. Okay, and then rub up to the wrist. Okay, and then open the tap. Nicely wash your hands under running water until all the soap lather turns away, and then close the tap with your elbow. Okay, then never touch the this packets again, because that might be contaminated. So you can use your left, that is non-dominant hands, elbow to close the tap. And then if this dryer is available, you can dry your hands under dryer. If it is not available, kindly use a sterile towel to wipe your hands. Okay, whenever you are wiping, you are supposed to wipe from the tip to the wrist. Okay, and before doing a procedure, kindly make sure your hands it should be dry. Okay, because wet environment causes more infection, and we have more chances of attracting infection towards yourself. So your hand should be purely dry before starting the next procedure. Next slide, please. So this is about the steps which are involved in the hand washing. Okay, and kindly think that this alcohol-based hand sanitizer you can use for like when you are touching one patient to another patient, and it is not an alternative for hand washing. Hand washing is best practice. Okay, what are the points you have to remember before doing a procedure? Cover all the cuts and wounds which are present in your hands. Okay, and then glove is not a substitute for hand washing. Whenever you are using a bar soap, kindly keep it dry. Okay, as I have already told, this wetness will causes accumulation of infection. Okay, when liquid soaps are used, avoid topping of the solution, and this dispenser which are used to clean this hand washing should be very, very clean. Next we can move on to the personal protective equipments. Okay, hope you have seen nowadays in media we are seeing that all the healthcare people who are handling the COVID cases are wearing this PPE. Okay, they are the gloves mainly to protect our hands from infection, gown to protect ourselves from the skin and the clothing, mask mainly the triple layer or the N95 which protects your oral cavity as well as the nasal cavity, and protect your IVR, which is also called as goggles to protect your eyes. Face shield, which completely protects your face, mouth, nose, and eyes. And then head cover from total from the hair up to the chest. And shoe cover or rubber boots mainly to prevent soiling of your leg. Next. Next. Previous slide. Oh, okay. Next slide. So, next is the illustration of the triple layer mask. Have you seen nowadays we have seen people who everywhere they are wearing a cloth mask. Do you think this cloth mask will protect you from certain infection? No, never. Kindly, healthcare providers should not wear this cloth mask. Okay, it's my humble request. Kindly don't wear this cloth mask, which is based only for design. Okay, actually, minimum we healthcare providers, we are supposed to wear this triple layer mask. If it is not available, you can use a N95. Okay, N95 is not at all necessary for every settings. Kindly wear this triple layer. This triple layer has a 3 layer, as you are seeing in the diagram. This have 3 layers, as you all know. Outer layer is a fluid repellent. So the opponent client whoever is talking to you, if they are having certain infection also, what will happen? This layer will protect yourself. Okay, this will repel the salivary secretions whichever emitted from other patient. Okay, middle layer is a tissue, barrier layer which will never allow infection to enter inside, or either your infection goes outside. Okay, the innermost layer is the moisture absorption layer, which will absorb the sweat or saliva, whatever, which are emitted by the people who are wearing the mask. Okay, so kindly adhere to this. Kindly wear this triple layer mask wherever you are practicing, and whenever you are wearing this, kindly see to that mainly the darkened color should come outside, and the top of the nasal bridge should tightly fix on the nasal bridge. Okay, kindly don't wear it in a wrong manner. Okay, you have to see the folding should come down. It should not face up. Okay, these are the few steps in a way you should see whenever you are wearing a triple layer mask. Okay, next slide, please. These are the components of PPE. Next is what are the principles we should follow while we are donning and doffing of PPE. Okay, the outside part, that is when you are compare this the outside of the gown, the outside of a face mask, the outside of a face shield, whatever it might be, is contaminated with, is highly dirty, and the inner part is clean. Okay, so when we are wearing also, we should follow the principles. When we are removing also, we should have this knowledge. Okay, and next is the sequence for donning PPE. First is, before donning PPE, kindly collect all the essential materials, like whatever you need: gown, mask, cap, everything. Okay, now for this pandemic, we have a PPE kit itself. Okay, you have a cover, and inside that cover we have everything, like whatever gown, mask, cap, face shield, everything will be kindly take and keep it in a clean environment. Go wash your hands and come. First wear one gloves. Okay, next kindly sit in a comfortable position. Wear the shoe cover. Okay, and next is the gown with the head cover. Okay, and cap will not be separate. In a certain situations, you have to wear the cap. Okay, so in that situation, kindly wear the apron first and then wear the cap. Okay, and then you can wear your mask, either N95 or triple layer, and then followed by face shield. Okay, and for this COVID pandemic, we used to wear goggles and then followed by face shield. But as days goes on, as time goes on, what will happen? This goggles will be fully fogged, and you cannot see the it will be very, very difficult to collect the blood sample. So in that cases, we'll be skipping that goggles and then face shield and followed by sterile gloves. Okay, next slide. So here is a pictorial representation how you are supposed to wear the gown. Okay, and then when you are taking the gown, kindly don't touch the outer part of the gown since it is sterile. Okay, and then first, after wearing the gloves, kindly touch the inner part of the gown, and then put your hands inside both sides, and then you have to tie up the upper part of the tie near the neck. Fasten in the back and neck and the waist. Next is you have to wear a mask. Okay, secure the mask. If you have an elastic band, kindly just apply it. And then if it is not elastic band, kindly tie it at the back. One tie should be above the earlobe and one should be below the earlobe. As you as you are seeing the second picture. Can you see the second picture? Second picture, first the mask tie, one should be above the earlobe and second should be below the ear. And also the upper part of the this mask should tightly fix on the nose bridge, fit flexible band to the nose bridge. Okay, and then below it should be cover the chin, so that the airborne particles of which are very less in size will not enter inside your nose. Okay, and third is the goggles or face shield. Okay, you have to place over the face and eyes and adjust it, and you will have the adjusting tape. Okay, if not adjusting tape, it is as like a wreath. Okay, so you can keep it on the over the head. And final is the sterile gloves. This glove should be worn over that isolation gown. Okay, one gloves will be under your gown and one will be above the gown of the hands. Okay, next slide. Can you see the picture of PPE? Head cover with the gown with head cover, and then goggles. We have worn one triple layer mask followed by N95 and double gloves. Okay, and we used to wear triple gloves, and in the COVID care settings we will be discarding the gloves once after use. Okay, after touching a single patient also we have to come and change our gloves. Okay, already we'll be having 3 gloves in our hand. The 4th gloves will be changing frequently. Can you see the picture? This is the perfect PPE. Okay, next slide. Next is sequence for doffing PPE. Okay, see, when you are removing PPE, you should be very careful. The entire outer part of your body is highly contaminated, since you are working in a highly contaminated area. Okay, so first remove the outer gloves where the outer part rolled in. Okay, the outer side of the glove should be rolled in. Second, the gloves will be clean gloves. Okay, so after that, remove your face shield and goggles. If cap is available, remove the cap. And next is remove the apron rolled in. Okay, next slide you will be seeing the picture. Okay, apron and gone. Next is shoe covers. Last is the gloves. Last gloves. Then apply the alcohol-based hand rub, hand wash, which is available in your settings. And then discard the mask last. Okay, when you are discarding the mask, kindly don't touch the front part of the mask. Kindly touch the ties. Okay, you don't tie the mask in behind the ear head. No, kindly touch. Take the ties and then remove your mask. Kindly don't touch the front part of the mask. Okay, and then finally wash your hands. Next slide. See, can you see how the healthcare worker is removing the gloves? Okay, so the PPE should be removed in the order that minimize the potential cross infection. Outside should be rolled inside. Okay, the outer part of the glove should come inside. And second is same like the gown. Okay, you have to untie the lace which is tied up behind the neck, tie it, and then make the roll the gown like outside part comes inside. Okay, finally next is the have to remove your face shield followed by mask. Okay, next is how you have to dispose the sharps which are used. What are the sharps mainly which are used in the healthcare settings? Mainly needles and the blades. Okay, never ever pass on the sharps from one person to another person. After collecting a sample, kindly don't tell your friend to discard the needle. Okay, kindly discard it immediately. Don't keep that needle, contaminated or whatever needle it might be. Never ever keep it on a table. It might harm you or some other people. Okay, always dispose your own sharps. Okay, and never ever recap a needle. In case if you have to recap a needle, kindly place the cap of the needle in the bed or this table, whatever it might be. Then recap it. Okay, never ever recap by using your own hands, and discard sharps and this blades in a puncture proof container which is white in color. Next slide. Next is disinfection. Okay, disinfection, which is a procedure which are mainly carried out in a hospital care settings, mainly to reduce the number of microorganisms on an object or surface, but not the complete destruction of the microorganisms. Just it will minimize the number of microorganisms which are present in the environment. Next, types of disinfectants which are used in the hospitals. They are high level, intermediate level, and low level. High level, as you all know, Cidex, which is 2% glutaraldehyde, which are mainly we are used in the operation theater, mainly to disinfect the tubings, okay, bronchoscopy tubings, and also the gastroendoscopy tubings, etc. Okay, stabilized hydrogen peroxide and 1% sodium hypochlorite solution, and intermediate is 0.1% sodium hypochlorite, lodophos, and phenolic solutions. Lodophor is also a solution. Okay, and then lower level disinfectants are quaternary ammonium compounds. This is also mainly which are used in the clinics. Okay, next, sterilization. In microbiology, you would have learned about sterilization. Sterilization is a procedure which will remove all the microorganisms, including spores, from an object, especially scissors, blades, and surgical instruments, whichever we are using. What are spores? Spores are the vegetative forms of a microorganisms which are able to reproduce. Okay, and there are mainly 4 methods of sterilization. They are the dry heat sterilization, moist heat sterilization, chemical sterilization, and radiation sterilization. Next slide. Next is the main topic, which is biomedical waste management. Okay, waste. What is biomedical waste? Biomedical waste is the waste mainly generated during the time of diagnosis of a particular disease, testing of particular diseases, treatment, research, or production of biological products from human or either animals. Okay, waste management is the collection, transport, processing, and disposal, and managing and monitoring of waste materials. Okay, there are mainly 4 color coded bins. This is 2020 protocol, that is red, white, blue, and yellow. Okay, next, characteristics of healthcare waste. See, among the 100%, 85% of the waste which are created from the hospital is highly non-infectious, and only 15% are infectious. Okay, so if we adhere to the proper practices, we can reduce the infection rate to a greater extent. Okay, there is a small statistics of biomedical waste. In developed countries, they say that per day there is 1 to 5 kgs per day. What or the amount of waste generated per bed is approximately 1.1 to 5 kgs. Okay, and in India it is approximately 1 to 2 kgs, and also it varies based on the government and private institution. Okay, next slide. What are the purposes of waste disposal? Why we have to follow strict rules in biomedical waste management? Mainly to reduce the hazardous nature of waste. If we doesn't discard the waste properly, it may be reused by some other people where they are more prone to get severe infection. Okay, to reduce the volume of waste. Okay, and then to prevent misuse or abuse of waste. See, in some places you would have seen some slum children, they'll be playing with the IV fluids bottle. Okay, so in that cases, they are more prone to get a certain infection. To ensure occupational safety and health, and to consider ASSS. Next slide. Legislation. Ministry of Environment and Forests issued guidelines to the hospital to ensure proper and safe disposal of biomedical waste. Biomedical waste management and handling rule came into effect in 1990. See, in our institution, I think, yes, you would have seen an incineration place in the last near to the compound. We have seen. Our faculty had taken it and taken to that places, and we have seen that. Okay, same like recently, all the hospitals are enforcing on this. The biomedical waste has to be segregated properly, and also it should be disposed properly. Okay, next. As I have already told, we have mainly 3 bins, 1 container, and 1 box. This is the black is for general waste. Okay, general waste means like this glove cover and syringe cover and all the waste papers you can discard in the black bin. And then yellow comes for human anatomical waste and expired medicines, discarded medicines, everything. Soiled linen should be discarded in yellow, and contaminated plastic waste like Foley's catheter, IV tubings, everything has to be discarded in the red container. sharps, especially blades, needles, and then slides should be discarded in the white. And then broken glasses are discarded, like ampules, vials, everything has to be discarded in the blue container. Okay, next slide. Next, you can see in detail about yellow. What are the types of waste? Human anatomical waste, animal anatomical waste. Animal anatomical waste mainly where we'll be using in the laboratory settings. Okay, and soiled linens. Okay, you have to discard in the yellow container. And then also discard either expiry medicines, chemical liquid waste, and also the linen which are contaminated has to be discarded in yellow. How this yellow particular waste has been treated and disposed? Incineration or plasma pyrolysis or deep burial. Okay, incineration of temperature greater than 12,000 centigrade, and then discarded medicines we are treating like this. Chemical liquid waste, before pre-treatment we have to pre-treatment before mixing with wastewater. This chemical waste, first we have to dilute this, we have to reduce this constant liquid dilution, and then we have to dispose it. Linen mainly disinfected, non-chlorinated chemical disinfection followed by incineration. Next slide. Right, as I have told, recyclable plastic waste, especially Foley's catheter, IV tubings, and this syringes, everything will be discarded in red. Mainly, it is disposed in the method of autoclaving or microwaving followed by shredding. Okay, and this waste products are mainly used for road making, recovery for road making. Next slide. White. This is mainly called the translucent puncture-proof container, where we used to discard all the needles, sharps, needles, blades, and also the slides whichever we used for this FNAC samples. The treatment is mainly autoclaving and shredding, sent for final disposal to iron foundries. Next slide. Next is the blue container, where we will be discarding all the ampules and this vials. Okay, and then types of waste are broken or discarded contaminated glass, mainly metallic body implants. And mainly this is first you have to disinfect this, and then this has been sent to recycling. Next slide. Next, what are the 3 R in the waste management concept? Yeah. Next, reduce, reuse, and recycle. Okay, next slide. The 3 R's are reduce, buy less. How we can reduce? Buy less, buy products that use less packaging or that last longer. Okay, so what are the products which are easily degradable? So kindly buy that products. Okay, reuse. Okay, and then whatever products which are reusable or rechargeable, we have to reuse it, and recycle whatever. If we separate the waste properly, many of the waste can be recycled. Okay, so recycling materials or recovering valuables from the waste or scrap. Next, waste segregation. So where does the waste segregation starts? It starts from the level of initiation of patient care. For example, when a staff is trying to give an injection, when they are opening a syringe, kindly discard the paper in the black container, so that the health housekeeping department staff doesn't need to dig on your hands in some other container to segregate them. So waste segregation should be proper, done at the source of waste generation itself. Okay, wherever the waste is starting, there itself the segregation should start, and it is a responsibility of generator of waste segregation as per categories available. As I have told you, whatever general waste, you have to discard it in black. Human products has to be discarded in yellow. Like that, the segregation should be done as per the categories. Okay, next slide. Waste storage. Okay. All the hospitals should have proper waste storage facility. Okay, and then it should be within the location should be within the hospital premises under proper supervision. Okay, then untreated biomedical waste should not be kept beyond 48 hours. Okay, so this waste should be generated, should be discarded within 48 hours. Okay, next slide. Waste transportation. This is before taking the bags. Like for example, before collecting the biomedical waste from the ward itself, it should be tied properly, tied and labeled. Okay, and waste handler should not touch any other article. So before tying the bags, the healthcare worker, that supervisor, housekeeping personnel should wear proper gloves, mask, and the PPE. Okay, and then they have to tie up the bags, label it properly, and then after touching the biomedical waste, they should not touch any other equipments in the ward. Okay, they should have a separate. They will have a separate trolley to shift out the biomedical waste. Okay, waste handler should not touch any other articles. A covered cart with biohazard symbol to carry the waste to the central area of the collection. Can you see the picture behind the slide? A person is collecting a previous slide, please. In a bucket, he is collecting the waste. Okay, so same like that trolley should have a symbol telling that this is a biomedical waste carrying trolley. So this trolley should not be used for some other patient care purposes. So it's exclusively for biomedical waste. Okay, next slide. Next is training of biomedical waste management. So if we have to adhere to the policies, we should know what are the materials available. Okay, the overall aim of training is to develop awareness of health, safety, and environmental issues relating to healthcare waste. Second is roles and responsibilities of the healthcare personnel in overall management program should be highlighted. Next, staff safety consideration. Okay, as I already told you, there should be separate trolleys for transporting the waste within the hospital. All workers who are involved in transportation of this biomedical waste should be aware of the hazardous nature of the work. Okay, and next is provide all the PPE and immunized against tetanus and hepatitis B. Okay, next, role of infection control nurse. Okay, this what as a nurse, since we are with the patients, we know how far the infection spreads. Okay, so every hospital will have an infection control nurse. This based on, you can have like in certain hospitals, based on unit wise, they'll have an infection control nurse. Okay, so what will happen? You have to, this infection control nurse should supposed to visit all the wards and high risk unit. Okay, and then she has to monitor whether the newcomers, whether the trainers and when all the healthcare people are adhering to the infection control policies. Okay, and next is checking the nursing supervisor registers and records for the case of suggestive of infection. See, when the supervisor's register will have, for example, when we get admitted with them, when we get an HBsAg positive patient, we'll be mentioning the nurse's record. Okay, this is a HBsAg client, so the nurses who are handling should be still more cautious while handling the cases. So when we check that proper, so after this infection control nurse sees to the register, she should see that what are the protocol they are adhering specifically to handle that particular cases. Okay, and then collection of sample from different areas of the hospital and sending to the lab. Okay, this infection control nurse is responsible for collection of samples either from the ICU, CCU, surgical ICU, OT, and all the wards. Okay, she has to make people to collect the samples weekly and send to the lab. So see, we can see the presence of growth in that particular, growth of microorganisms in the particular area. So if there is any growth, what does it say? The disinfection is not proper. So we have to improve the concentration of the solution. Okay, so same like disinfection control nurse has to take many measures to reduce the number of infection. Okay, thereby we can prevent the nosocomial infection. Next, daily visit to the microbiology lab to ascertain results of samples collected. As I have discussed already, monitoring and supervision of the infection among the hospital staff. So frequently, for example, when we have like frequently, sometimes the staffs will be getting infected with certain infections. So it says that particular word is not so clear, so that only people, the healthcare people are getting infected. Okay, so we can see whether recently how far the cases are getting admitted. What about their growth? Okay, so by seeing this, we will be able to protect the healthcare staff. Next is training of nursing and paramedical personnel on correct hygiene practices and aseptic techniques. Okay. So we students, as you students, you have to adhere to this infection control practices. Next is till now we have seen about standard precautions. Okay, next is transmission based precautions. Okay, transmission means from one person to next person. Okay, and how does this infection transmit from one person to next transmission? This transmission based precautions following this COVID-19, we are very aware that is mainly due to there's a few say it is airborne and few say it is droplet precautions. Okay, so there are mainly three. They are contact precautions, droplet precautions, and airborne precautions. Okay, next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, contact, droplet, and airborne. Next. First, we can see about airborne precautions. Okay, airborne precautions mainly occurs when the microbes of very small nuclei, which are less than that of 5 microns. Okay, when the nuclei of the particular microorganism size is very small, it is considered to be as airborne precautions. Especially they are measles and tuberculosis. Okay, and what are the main precautions you have to follow in this? You have to this people there are two types. When you are admitting a person with an airborne precaution, either you can give a separate room for that particular patient who is infected with this tuberculosis, or either you can give a cohort room. Cohort room is like in a room you can admit 2 or 3 clients with the same diseases. 3 patients with the same diagnosis can be admitted in a same isolation room. Okay, so you have to, before entering the room, you are supposed to follow the hand hygiene and then put on the mainly the N95 mask. N95 mask is like it will filter the nuclei of very less size, also less than 5 microns will also be filtered, so that healthcare worker who is taking care of a tuberculosis patient is under minimal risk of getting the infection. Okay, and next is perform the previous step. Perform the fit test. After fixing the N95 mask, you should check, you should blow and see whether the air is getting leaked via the nasal bridge or by the chin border. Okay, if it is getting leaked, kindly fix it properly and then enter inside the particular room. And the main thing is this patient room should maintain a ventilation of negative airflow pressure, which is very mandatory, and the air exchange should be minimum of 12 air exchange. Negative airflow pressure is nothing but, for example, whenever you are entering inside an ICU, you will feel like an air pulling you inside. Can you understand? Air pulling you inside. That is negative airflow pressure. The main rationale behind this is the infection which is circulating inside the room will never come out to the environment. Can you understand? So the surroundings will be protected. Okay, so the airflow, that is negative airflow, is the airflow will be inside the particular room itself. It will not come outside the environment. See, before it is getting exhausted to the environment, it has to be filtered via proper filters, and then it will be exposed to the environment. Can you understand? That is called as negative airflow ventilation. Especially when you go to ICUs, proper ICUs, you will feel a negative air pulling you inside. Okay, so whereas the circulation of air will be only inside. Okay, and then this is 12 air exchange should be 12 air exchange per hour. And second is for the patient as well as for the visitors, whoever is residing in that particular room, you are supposed to teach them about the cough hygiene. Okay, mainly whenever you take a patient with a respiratory illness, they will have cough. Okay, that is a main sign, is it right? So whenever they cough, they are supposed to use a napkin and then close their oral cavity, and then they have to cough or sneeze. If accidentally it's not happening, it's not available, what you have to do, they can cough or sneeze under their closed elbow. Okay, whereby they are preventing not preventing, they are reducing the source of infection. Okay, next is and there is negative air pressure in an isolation room technique is used in hospitals to prevent cross contamination from room to room. Mainly generates negative pressure lower than that of the surrounding. So outside pressure will be, surrounding pressure will be higher than that of the pressure which is existing inside that room. Okay, this technique is used to isolate patients in airborne contagious disease such as influenza, measles, chickenpox, tuberculosis, SARS, and mainly for COVID-19. Okay, next slide. Next is droplet precaution. Droplet precautions. Airborne is less than that of 5 microns. Droplet is greater than that of 5 microns. Okay, which transmit 3 feet in air, mainly mumps and SARS. Okay, this is also the staff, they are supposed to follow all the standard safety precautions which we learned earlier. In addition to that, you have to perform hand hygiene, this N95 is not that much required. Yeah, surgical mask is okay. And then for this patients and relatives also, you're supposed to teach about the cough hygiene, okay? Because the infected droplets are more prone to transmit the diseases, okay? So by practicing the cough hygiene, we are limiting the transmission of infection. Next, contact precautions. These are diseases which are transmitted either by direct or indirect contact to the contaminated surfaces. Okay, for example, you'll be receiving a patient with a HBsAg in one cot, and after 2 days, the patient may get transferred or moved out in some other cot or some other ward. Immediately, you are supposed to remove the linen of that particular bed. This is right. If you are leaving that, what will happen? The second patient, next patient who are coming to that particular bed, they are more prone to get certain infections, okay? Especially the patients who are scabies and herpes zoster, okay? And the precautions which we the staffs are supposed to take is like beyond the standard precautions. Before entering the room, you have to perform the hand hygiene. Put on to your mask and put on the gloves. Okay, that is very, very essential since you are going to touch the skin. Okay, whatever, even the visitors who are taking care of the particular patients also, you are supposed to tell the proper while removing them. And for all this transmission based precautions, kindly remember, have a dustbin inside the room itself. Kindly remove the PP whatever used in that particular room and then come outside. Okay, whereas you will not bring the infection from that particular room to out. Okay, next. To summarize, mainly transmission based precautions, the contact precautions. Mainly, you have to follow hand hygiene, gloves and gowning, droplet, hand hygiene and mask, airborne, hand hygiene, negative air pressure is very, very essential. And for especially, I forgot to told you, for this airborne precautions, the room should be kept closed always. Okay, when you enter inside, kindly close the door, and when you come outside, kindly close the door. Instruct the visitors to follow the strict closed door. If not, we can if the management is supportive, self closing door is also available. Okay, so that it will be so that the infection from that particular room will never escape to the environment. Okay, next slide please. Role of infection control nurse. Instruct the visitors about the precautions to be followed. So whenever the visitors come and ask you, kindly tell them we have the mask, gloves and everything. And after entry also, if you are accidentally coughing or sneezing, kindly cover yourself and before sneezing, and then limit the visitors. That will reduce the source of infection, and then display posters regarding the precautions. Okay, so we can take some pictures and post it on the particular room, whereas so that the visitors will read on that in their own language. Make sure that all the staff who are working in the particular isolation cubicle adhere to the policies of the hospitals. Next, finally, actions what the nurses can take to prevent angina, cover, cough, sneeze, cough hygiene should be strictly for everyone and always, not only the patient, even we staffs, even we people, healthy people, whatever it might be, whenever we cough or sneeze, we are supposed to follow the cough hygiene. Okay, distance, never sit very close together, at least maintain as like what COVID taught you. Okay, maintain a distance of at least 1 meter, and hand hygiene, water before touching, if you are before and after touching anything, kindly wash your hands. Never touch, limit touching the contaminated hands, contaminated area with bare hands. Okay, and last is the PPE for essential things. Okay, according to the risk assessment. For a minor procedure, for a minor things, go with the surgical mask. If it is an airborne infection, kindly go with the N95 mask. Next, summary. So till now we have discussed about infection control. First we have seen what is infection. Next we have definition of infection control, chain of infection, how we nurses can break it. Okay, in each steps we can adhere to many of the steps where we can break it. And then what are the two types of measures, that are the standard safety measures and transmission based precautions. Under standard safety, we have seen about hand washing, PPE, decontamination, waste disposal, that is biomedical waste management. Under transmission based, we have seen about three things, mainly droplet, airborne and contact. Okay, airborne is highly contagious where the nuclei is very, very small in size, very, very small, less than 5. And then droplet, it is greater than 5. And this contact is when we touch an infected skin, for example, scabies or whatever it might be. If you are not adhering to the proper policies, you are more prone to get infection. And then staff safety, and what are the what is the role of a nurse in controlling the infection. Okay, next. To conclude, we nurses and you nursing students, you are the forthcoming nurses, spending more time near the bedside and providing care to the critically ill patients. Hence, we should adhere to the infection control protocol, whatever you have learned, as well as framed with the currently working institution, okay, to safeguard ourselves and also to protect the community. We have the responsibility to protect the community also, as well, especially in communicable disease. And we should teach the patient, whoever takes a patient who is coming to us, we have to teach them in their own language, whatever they can follow. Okay, the references for the particular thing is Potter and Perry, first year, Fundamentals of Nursing, 6th edition, WHO Infection Control Module, Volume 4, and then Microbiology for Nurses, AIMS Infection Control Manual, and Wikipedia and cdc.gov. Next, can we have a question session? What is the size of the airborne nuclei?
Students, you can unmute and you can give your answer.
Can anyone? What is the size of an airborne nuclei? We have seen a transmission-based precaution.
Less than 5 micron.
Very good, very good, very good. Thank you. Next session, next question. What is the negative air pressure required in airborne room? What's the negative air pressure which is required in the airborne precaution room? Or airborne? Very good, very good. Next question. Expiry medicine should be discarded in which bin?
Yellow bin.
Which bin?
Yellow bin.
Very good, very good, very good, very good. Next question. Which one belongs to high level disinfectant?
Option C, glutaraldehyde.
Yes, yes, glutaraldehyde side X, which is used in what settings? Which area mainly? Mainly used in operation theaters, okay? Mainly to disinfect the this bronchoscopy tubings and everything. Recyclable plastic waste should be discarded in?
Blue, ma'am.
No. Recyclable plastic waste. Police catheter. Yes, red. Very good. Very good. Very good, children. Very good. Thank you. Thank you, children.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Provided a very deeper insight
Thank you, ma'am.
infection control nursing practices, and you have added your personal experience along with that, ma'am. So we are really fortunate to have you today with us, ma'am. You have shared your expertise, knowledge and experience with us, which is very, very helpful for our students to make it in their practice, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. And also I thank all the ma'ams of PSG Con, especially Jesda ma'am, Leena ma'am. I remember only 2 people. And thank you you all for providing me an opportunity to share my experience. Thanks a lot. Okay, thank you.
Students, I really appreciate all your contributions and your patient listening to throughout the session. Really, this will provide you a very good support of knowledge in your exams as well as in your clinical practice. So I really thank everyone those who have taken part in today's session. So we can end the session.